Sarah Martinez had dreamed of serving her country since she was 12 years old. Growing up in a small Texas town where military service was considered the highest honor, she watched her older brother deploy to Afghanistan and return with stories that both inspired and terrified her. When she turned 18, despite her parents' concerns about their only daughter joining the military, Sarah enlisted in the Army with determination burning in her chest. The bus ride to Fort Benning felt like the longest journey of her life. Sarah stared out the window at the Georgia landscape, her stomach churning with a mixture of excitement and pure terror. She had prepared physically for months, running 5 miles every morning and doing push-ups until her arms screamed. Her high school wrestling coach had helped her build strength. But nothing could have prepared her for what awaited at basic training. The moment she stepped off the bus, the reality hit her like a sledgehammer. Drill sergeants descended on the new recruits like wolves, screaming instructions and insults with equal intensity. Sarah's carefully packed duffel bag was torn apart within minutes. Her personal items scattered across the concrete as she scrambled to reassemble everything. According to military standards, she didn't yet understand. The first week broke down everything Sarah thought she knew about herself. The physical demands were crushing, but the mental pressure was worse. Every morning began at 4:30, with the jarring sound of metal trash cans being thrown down the barracks hallway. Sarah would stumble from her narrow bunk, her body aching from the previous day's torture, only to face another 18 hours of relentless training. Her fellow recruits came from every corner of America, bringing different backgrounds and motivations. There was Marcus from Detroit, whose quiet confidence made him a natural leader among the group. Jennifer from California seemed to handle every challenge with an easy smile that made Sarah both envious and inspired. Then there was David from rural Montana, whose farm-strong body made every physical task look effortless. But Sarah struggled. During the first fitness test, she barely managed to complete the required push-ups, her arms shaking uncontrollably as she forced herself through the final repetitions. The 2-mile run left her gasping and dizzy, finishing nearly 2 minutes behind the minimum required time. Drill Sergeant Rodriguez pulled her aside afterward, his weathered face showing no emotion as he delivered news that made her blood run cold. "Martinez, you're on the failure track," he said matter-of-factly. "You've got 2 weeks to meet standards or you're going home. No second chances, no participation trophies. This is the Army, not summer camp." That night, Sarah lay in her bunk listening to the quiet breathing of her fellow recruits, tears streaming silently down her face. The girl in the bunk next to her had already been sent home after breaking down during a particularly brutal obstacle course session. Another recruit had quit voluntarily after 3 days, claiming he couldn't handle the pressure. Sarah wondered if she would be next. The following days became a nightmare of repeated failures. During weapons training, she couldn't properly field strip her rifle within the required time limit. Her hands would shake under the instructor's watchful eye, causing her to fumble with components she had practiced assembling hundreds of times. The obstacle course remained her biggest enemy, with the rope climb defeating her every single attempt. Other recruits began to distance themselves from her, afraid that her struggles would somehow contaminate their own chances of success. Military training created a harsh environment where individual failure could affect the entire unit, and nobody wanted to risk their own dreams for someone who might not make it anyway. Sarah's confidence crumbled piece by piece. She started second-guessing every movement, every decision. During drill and ceremony practice, she would march out of step, causing the entire formation to look sloppy. The drill sergeants began using her as an example of what not to do, calling out her mistakes in front of the entire company. "Martinez can't even tie her boots correctly," Drill Sergeant Thompson would announce during morning inspection. "If you want to end up like Martinez, keep doing whatever you're doing wrong." The psychological warfare was working exactly as designed, but instead of building her up, it was tearing Sarah down. She began to believe that maybe she wasn't cut out for military service. Maybe her parents had been right to worry. Maybe she should quit before she embarrassed herself further. One particularly difficult morning, after failing another physical fitness assessment, Sarah found herself sitting alone behind the mess hall, seriously considering calling her parents to come pick her up. She had seen other recruits make that call, watched them pack their bags with shame written across their faces as they prepared to return to civilian life as failures. The thought of facing her hometown as someone who couldn't hack it in the military made her stomach sick. She imagined the disappointed looks from neighbors who had wished her well, the awkward conversations with her brother, who had successfully completed his own military training. Worst of all, she pictured the look in her own eyes when she looked in the mirror, knowing she had given up on her dreams. But something deep inside Sarah refused to accept defeat. Despite the overwhelming evidence that she wasn't strong enough, fast enough, or tough enough for military life, a small flame of determination continued to burn. She thought about all the reasons she had enlisted in the first place. The desire to serve something greater than herself, to prove that she could overcome any obstacle. That evening, as she prepared for what might be one of her final nights in basic training, Sarah made a decision that would change everything. She wouldn't quit. Even if she failed, even if she was sent home, she wouldn't be the one to give up. She would force them to make that decision for her. But she wouldn't walk away voluntarily. Little did she know that her decision to persevere, even in the face of seemingly certain failure, would soon attract the attention of someone who could change her entire trajectory, someone whose unconventional approach to leadership would unlock potential that Sarah didn't even know she possessed. The worst phase of her training was about to become the beginning of her transformation, from a struggling recruit into something she never imagined possible. The next morning brought a surprise that nobody in Sarah's training company expected. Instead of their regular drill sergeants, a different figure stood at the front of the formation during morning assembly. The man was shorter than most of the intimidating instructors they had grown accustomed to, but something about his presence commanded immediate attention from every recruit. Chief Petty Officer James "Hawk" Harrison wasn't supposed to be at an Army basic training facility. As a Navy SEAL with over 15 years of combat experience, his presence at Fort Benning was part of a new inter-service training program designed to expose Army recruits to different military perspectives. What the recruits didn't know was that Chief Harrison had specifically requested to work with struggling units. Sarah noticed immediately that this instructor was different. Where the drill sergeants relied on volume and intimidation, Chief Harrison spoke in measured tones that somehow carried more authority than all the shouting she had endured for weeks. His eyes moved across the formation with the calculating precision of someone who had learned to assess threats and opportunities in life or death situations. "I've been reviewing your company's performance metrics," Chief Harrison began, his voice carrying easily across the silent formation. "Some of you are exceeding standards, others are meeting them, and some of you are failing spectacularly." Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks, certain that everyone knew he was talking about her. She had become the company's most visible failure, the cautionary tale that drill sergeants use to motivate other recruits. "Here's what I want you to understand," Chief Harrison continued. "In combat, there are no participation trophies. There are no second chances. There are only results and consequences. But here's what your drill sergeants haven't told you yet. The difference between success and failure often comes down to one thing: understanding why you're fighting." He began walking through the formation, making eye contact with individual recruits. When his gaze fell on Sarah, she expected to see disappointment or dismissal. Instead, she saw something that surprised her: genuine interest. "Today we're going to do things differently," Chief Harrison announced. "Instead of focusing on what you can't do, we're going to figure out what you can do. Instead of breaking you down to build you up, we're going to find out what's already inside you that just needs to be unlocked." The morning's training session was unlike anything the recruits had experienced. Instead of the usual screaming and punishment-based motivation, Chief Harrison implemented techniques he had learned during his SEAL training. He paired stronger recruits with weaker ones, not to create shame, but to build teamwork and mutual support. When it came time for physical training, Chief Harrison did something that shocked everyone. He joined them. Instead of standing on the sidelines shouting instructions, he dropped down and did push-ups alongside the recruits, matching their pace and encouraging them through personal example rather than intimidation. Sarah found herself doing more push-ups than she had ever completed before, motivated not by fear of punishment, but by the presence of someone who believed she could succeed. When her arms began to shake during the final repetitions, Chief Harrison was right beside her, his own arms trembling with effort as he demonstrated that even elite warriors struggled with challenges. "Pain is temporary," he said quietly, just loud enough for her to hear. "But the pride of pushing through lasts forever." During the obstacle course session, Chief Harrison completely revolutionized the approach. Instead of timing individual performance and humiliating those who struggled, he turned it into a team exercise. The goal wasn't to be the fastest individual, but to ensure that every member of the team completed every obstacle. When Sarah reached the rope climb that had defeated her countless times, she expected to fail again. But this time, Marcus and Jennifer were waiting at the top, having completed their own climbs and returned to help others. Chief Harrison had positioned stronger recruits at strategic points to assist their struggling teammates. In combat, you never leave anyone behind, Chief Harrison explained. Success isn't about being the best individual warrior. It's about creating a unit where everyone can contribute their strengths and the team covers for individual weaknesses. For the first time since arriving at basic training, Sarah successfully completed the rope climb. It wasn't entirely through her own strength. Marcus had helped pull her up the final few feet. But Chief Harrison made it clear that accepting help wasn't failure. It was smart tactics. The afternoon brought weapons training, where Chief Harrison's combat experience became immediately apparent. Instead of focusing on memorizing procedures by rote, he explained the practical applications of everything they were learning. He told stories from his deployments that made the training relevant and meaningful. "Your rifle isn't just a tool you need to pass a test with," he said while demonstrating proper field stripping technique. In combat, this weapon might be the difference between coming home to your family or not coming home at all. Every second you spend mastering it could save your life or the life of the person next to you. Sarah found herself absorbing the instruction in a completely different way. When Chief Harrison explained the importance of muscle memory in high-stress situations, she understood why the repetitive training mattered. When he demonstrated proper shooting stance while describing how accuracy under pressure had saved his team during an ambush in Iraq, the lessons became personal rather than academic. By the end of the day, something fundamental had shifted in Sarah's understanding of what military training was supposed to accomplish. She realized that she had been approaching every challenge as an individual test rather than preparation for being part of something larger than herself. That evening, Chief Harrison approached her during the brief free time before lights out. Sarah braced herself for another conversation about her deficiencies, but instead he surprised her with a question. "Martinez, why did you enlist?" The question caught her off guard. None of the drill sergeants had ever asked her about her motivations. They seemed to assume that everyone's reasons were the same, or that personal motivations didn't matter. "I wanted to serve my country, Chief," she answered, falling back on the standard response she had given during processing. "That's what you're supposed to say," Chief Harrison replied with a slight smile. "But that's not what I asked. Why did you really enlist? What brought you here?" For the first time in weeks, Sarah found herself talking honestly about her dreams, her fears, and her determination to prove that she could overcome any obstacle. Chief Harrison listened without judgment, occasionally asking questions that helped her dig deeper into her own motivations. "Here's what I see when I look at you, Martinez," he said finally. "I see someone who's been trying to meet other people's expectations instead of discovering her own capabilities. Tomorrow we're going to start fixing that." The following morning began differently than any other day in Sarah's basic training experience. Chief Harrison gathered the entire company before dawn. But instead of the usual formation drills, he led them to a part of the training facility that most recruits had never seen, a specialized combat simulation area typically reserved for advanced units. "Today, you're going to learn what real military training looks like," Chief Harrison announced as they stood before a complex obstacle course that seemed designed to simulate actual combat conditions. "This isn't about meeting minimum standards or passing tests. This is about discovering what you're capable of when everything depends on your performance." The course was intimidating, in ways that the standard obstacles weren't. Instead of simple rope climbs and wall scaling, this simulation included crawling through mud under live wire, navigating through simulated building clearance scenarios, and completing tasks while carrying wounded teammates represented by weighted mannequins. Sarah's stomach dropped as she realized this would be even more challenging than the regular training that had been defeating her for weeks. But Chief Harrison seemed to read her expression, and the worried looks on several other recruits' faces. "Here's the difference between today and every other day you've been here," he said, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had led people through actual life-and-death situations. "Today you're not competing against each other. Today you're training to save each other's lives. He divided the company into small teams, deliberately mixing the strongest performers with those who had been struggling. Sarah found herself grouped with Marcus, whose steady leadership had impressed everyone, Jennifer, whose positive attitude never seemed to break, and David, whose farm-bred strength made him invaluable for physical challenges. "Your mission is simple," Chief Harrison explained to each team. "Everyone completes the course, or no one does. There are no individual winners today. There are only successful teams and failed teams. The first obstacle required the team to cross a 20-foot gap, using only ropes and their combined body weight. Sarah watched as other teams attempted different strategies, some failing spectacularly as members fell into the muddy pit below. When her team's turn came, Marcus took charge with the natural leadership that made him stand out. "Sarah, you're the lightest, so you'll go first," he said, studying the obstacle with tactical precision. "Jennifer and I will anchor the rope. David, you'll follow Sarah and help pull the rest of us across." For a moment, Sarah felt the familiar panic rising in her chest. Being selected to go first meant that if she failed, she would doom her entire team's chances. But something in Marcus's expression told her that he genuinely believed she could succeed, not despite her struggles, but because of something he saw in her that she didn't see in herself. Chief Harrison had positioned himself where he could observe all the teams simultaneously, but Sarah noticed his attention focusing on her team as she prepared to attempt the rope crossing. Instead of the critical evaluation she expected, his expression showed professional interest, as if he was studying her technique rather than waiting for her to fail. The rope felt rough against her palms as she gripped it tightly, her body weight causing it to sag toward the muddy pit below. But instead of the individual pressure she had felt during previous training, Sarah found herself thinking about her teammates who were counting on her success. The mental shift from personal fear to team responsibility changed everything. She moved across the rope with careful, deliberate progress, not rushing and not allowing panic to override her technique. When she reached the other side, the feeling of success was different than any personal achievement she had experienced. She wasn't just proud of completing the obstacle, she was excited to help her teammates succeed. David crossed next, his powerful frame making the rope crossing look easy. But he immediately began preparing to help the others rather than celebrating his own success. Marcus and Jennifer followed, with Sarah and David working together to keep the rope stable and provide assistance when needed. "Outstanding," Chief Harrison called out as her team completed the first obstacle. "That's what teamwork looks like." The next challenge tested them in ways that purely physical training never could. They had to navigate through a darkened building simulation, locating and rescuing civilian mannequins, while avoiding simulated enemy positions marked by sensors that would sound alarms if approached incorrectly. Sarah discovered that her smaller size, which had been a disadvantage in many physical challenges, became an asset in the tight spaces of the building simulation. She could move through areas that her larger teammates couldn't access, gathering intelligence and clearing paths for the rest of the team. "You've got good instincts for this," David whispered as Sarah successfully identified a hidden sensor that could have compromised their mission. "You see things the rest of us miss." The realization that she possessed valuable skills was revolutionary for Sarah. For weeks, she had focused entirely on her weaknesses, never considering that she might have strengths that others lacked. Chief Harrison's training methodology was revealing capabilities that the traditional approach had never. Identified the final obstacle was the most challenging yet, a simulated casualty evacuation where teams had to carry weighted mannequins, representing wounded soldiers, through a complex course while under time pressure. The physical demands were enormous, but the emotional weight of the simulation made it intensely personal. "In combat, this mannequin would be your battle buddy," Chief Harrison explained grimly. "Someone who trusted you to bring them home. Someone whose family is waiting for them to return safely. Failure isn't just a poor grade. It's a life lost." Sarah's team approached the challenge with the coordinated efficiency they had developed throughout the day. Instead of each person trying to carry a mannequin individually, they worked together to move all 4 casualties as a coordinated unit. Sarah's role became navigation and communication, guiding her teammates through the most efficient routes while they handled the heaviest lifting. When other teams struggled to complete the evacuation within the time limit, Sarah's team finished with time to spare. More importantly, they had maintained the tactical discipline that Chief Harrison emphasized throughout the exercise. As the day concluded, Sarah realized that something fundamental had changed in how she understood military training and her own capabilities. The traditional approach had focused on identifying and punishing weaknesses, but Chief Harrison's methods revealed strengths that could be developed and utilized. "Martinez," Chief Harrison called as the teams prepared to return to their barracks. "Walk with me." They walked in silence for several minutes before he spoke again. "What did you learn today?" "That I'm stronger when I'm part of a team," Sarah answered, surprising herself with the confidence in her voice. "That's part of it," Chief Harrison agreed. "But there's something else. Today you discovered that you've been measuring yourself against the wrong standards. You've been trying to be someone else instead of becoming the best version of yourself." He stopped walking and faced her directly. "Tomorrow, we're going to start building on what you discovered today. Are you ready for that?" For the first time since arriving at basic training, Sarah's answer came without hesitation or doubt. "Yes, Chief, I'm ready." Chief Harrison's promise to build on Sarah's newfound confidence began before sunrise the next morning. Instead of the usual company-wide formation, he pulled aside the recruits who had been struggling the most, including Sarah. She expected additional punishment or remedial training, but Chief Harrison had something entirely different in mind. "You five are going to become my special project," he announced to the small group assembled in a quiet corner of the training facility. "Not because you're failures, but because you have untapped potential that the standard training methods haven't reached." Sarah looked around at her fellow special project recruits. There was Tommy from Ohio, whose severe stutter made him a target for ridicule during verbal exercises. Maria from New Mexico struggled with the academic portions of training despite showing natural leadership abilities. Kevin from Florida had the physical strength but seemed to panic under pressure. And Lisa from Washington had excellent technical skills but lacked confidence in high-stress situations. "Here's what I've learned in 15 years of combat," Chief Harrison continued. "The military needs all kinds of warriors. The cookie-cutter approach might produce acceptable soldiers, but it doesn't create the specialists who win wars and save lives." He led them to a small classroom where he had prepared individual folders for each recruit. Sarah opened hers to find a detailed analysis of her performance that was unlike anything she had seen before. Instead of just listing her failures, the report identified specific skills and natural abilities that could be developed. "Martinez, you have exceptional situational awareness and tactical thinking," Chief Harrison said, reviewing her file. "Yesterday, you spotted threats and opportunities that your teammates missed. You navigate complex environments instinctively. These are skills that take most people years to develop." The assessment continued with similar revelations for each recruit. Tommy's stutter disappeared when he was focused on technical tasks, revealing natural mechanical aptitude. Maria's struggles with written tests masked her ability to make quick decisions under pressure. Kevin's panic attacks actually indicated high emotional intelligence that could be channeled into protective instincts for his team. "Traditional basic training assumes everyone needs to be good at everything," Chief Harrison explained. "But real military units succeed because different people contribute different strengths. Your job isn't to be perfect at everything. Your job is to be excellent at your specialty, while being competent enough in other areas to support your team." This philosophy represented a complete departure from everything Sarah had experienced during her weeks of traditional training. Instead of trying to force square pegs into round holes, Chief Harrison was helping each recruit discover their natural shape and find where they fit best. The morning's training session focused on advanced tactical scenarios that played to each recruit's emerging strengths. Sarah found herself naturally gravitating toward reconnaissance and intelligence gathering roles, using her enhanced awareness to identify threats and opportunities that others missed. During a simulated patrol exercise, she noticed subtle changes in the environment that indicated potential ambush positions. Her observations allowed her team to avoid simulated enemy contact and complete their mission successfully. For the first time, Sarah felt like she was contributing something valuable rather than just trying not to hold others back. "Outstanding work, Martinez," Chief Harrison said after reviewing her performance. "You have natural instincts for intelligence work. That's a specialized skill that could take you places in the military that most people never see." The afternoon brought weapons training, but Chief Harrison's approach was different than the standardized instruction Sarah had struggled with previously. Instead of forcing everyone to use identical techniques, he helped each recruit find shooting positions and methods that worked with their individual body types and natural coordination. Sarah discovered that her smaller frame and steady hands were actually advantages for precision shooting when she used techniques adapted to her physique. Her accuracy improved dramatically when she stopped trying to mimic the shooting stance that worked for larger recruits and instead used positions that maximized her natural stability. Every special operations unit has sharpshooters who don't look like typical soldiers, Chief Harrison explained as he watched Sarah consistently hit targets that had been impossible for her just days earlier. Physical appearance means nothing. What matters is results. The transformation wasn't just physical. Sarah began to carry herself differently, with the confidence that came from knowing she possessed valuable skills. Her teammates noticed the change and began seeking her input on tactical decisions, recognizing her analytical abilities as assets to the team. During evening study time, Chief Harrison introduced advanced material that went far beyond basic training requirements. He brought out maps from actual combat zones, after-action reports from real military operations, and case studies of successful missions that relied on the kinds of specialized skills his recruits were developing. "This is what you're really training for," he said, spreading out a map from a counter-terrorism operation in Afghanistan. "Not parade ground drills or standardized tests, but situations where lives depend on your ability to think, adapt, and execute under extreme pressure." Sarah found herself absorbed in the tactical analysis, understanding how the lessons she was learning could apply to real-world scenarios. She began to see military service not as a series of arbitrary challenges to overcome, but as preparation for meaningful work that could make a difference in critical situations. The other recruits in her special group were undergoing similar transformations. Tommy's mechanical aptitude was being channeled toward explosive ordnance disposal techniques. Maria's leadership abilities were being developed through small unit tactics. Kevin's protective instincts were being refined into close protection skills. Lisa's technical expertise was being expanded into electronic warfare capabilities. "You're not just becoming soldiers," Chief Harrison told them as the day concluded. "You're becoming specialists who can contribute unique capabilities to any unit you join." That evening, as Sarah lay in her bunk reviewing the tactical manuals Chief Harrison had given her to study, she realized that her entire understanding of success had changed. She was no longer measuring herself against arbitrary standards that didn't reflect her natural abilities. Instead, she was developing skills that played to her strengths while building competence in areas that supported her specialty. For the first time since arriving at basic training, Sarah fell asleep excited about the next day's challenges rather than dreading them. She was beginning to understand that her struggles with traditional training hadn't been evidence of her inadequacy, but rather proof that she needed a different approach to unlock her potential. The seeds of her transformation were taking root, and tomorrow would bring new opportunities to prove that failure in one system didn't mean failure as a soldier. Chief Harrison was helping her discover that the military needed people exactly like her, if they could just find the right way to develop and utilize their unique capabilities. What Sarah didn't yet realize was that Chief Harrison's special training program was about to face its ultimate test, and her newfound confidence would be challenged in ways she couldn't imagine. The ultimate test of Chief Harrison's unorthodox training methods came without warning during the 5th week of basic training. Sarah and her fellow recruits were awakened not by the usual reveille, but by the harsh sound of emergency sirens echoing across the base. Red lights flashed through the barracks windows as drill sergeants rushed through, shouting orders for immediate assembly. "This is not a drill," Drill Sergeant Rodriguez announced as the company scrambled to form ranks in the pre-dawn darkness. "We have a simulated enemy infiltration of the base. Your training ends now. Your mission begins immediately." Sarah's heart pounded as she realized this was the culmination exercise that would determine whether recruits successfully completed basic training or were sent home as failures. Everything she had learned, all the confidence she had built under Chief Harrison's guidance, would be tested in the next 24 hours. The scenario was designed to be as realistic as possible. Professional military actors playing enemy infiltrators had been positioned throughout the training facility. The recruits' mission was to locate and neutralize the threats while protecting simulated civilian personnel and securing critical infrastructure points. What made the exercise particularly challenging was that it required all the skills that traditional basic training emphasized: physical fitness, weapons proficiency, individual discipline, while also demanding the specialized capabilities and teamwork that Chief Harrison had been developing. As the company divided into tactical units, Sarah found herself assigned to a reconnaissance team led by Marcus. Their mission was to gather intelligence on enemy positions and relay that information to assault teams. It was exactly the kind of role that Chief Harrison had identified as matching her natural abilities. "Martinez, you're our eyes and ears," Marcus said as they prepared their equipment. "We need you to do what you do best. See what the rest of us miss." The first phase of the exercise took place in a wooded area designed to simulate the kind of terrain where actual combat operations might occur. Sarah's team moved carefully through the darkness. Using hand signals and tactical movement techniques they had practiced under Chief Harrison's instruction. Within the first hour, Sarah's enhanced situational awareness proved invaluable. She spotted 3 concealed enemy positions that other teams had missed, allowing her unit to avoid detection while gathering crucial intelligence. Her observations were detailed and accurate, providing assault teams with the information they needed to plan successful attacks. "Outstanding work, Martinez," the exercise observer noted as Sarah's team completed their reconnaissance mission. "Your intelligence gathering directly contributed to the success of 2 separate assault operations." But the exercise was far from over. As dawn broke, the scenario shifted to urban combat simulation in a mock village constructed on the training grounds. Sarah's team was reassigned to a building clearance mission that would test every skill they had developed. The urban environment was Sarah's element. Her smaller size allowed her to move through the complex structure without detection, while her tactical thinking helped her team navigate the dangerous spaces efficiently. She identified multiple entry points, predicted enemy movement patterns, and coordinated her team's advance with precision that impressed even the hardened drill sergeants observing the exercise. During one particularly challenging phase, Sarah's team encountered a simulated hostage situation that required split-second decision-making under extreme pressure. The enemy actors were highly trained professionals who made the scenario as realistic as possible without actual danger. Sarah found herself in a position where her actions would determine the outcome. Using the tactical analysis skills Chief Harrison had taught her, she identified an approach that would allow her team to neutralize the threat while protecting the hostages. Her plan worked flawlessly, earning praise from the exercise controllers. "That was textbook tactical thinking," one of the observers commented. "You demonstrated the kind of analytical capability we usually only see in soldiers with years of experience." As the exercise continued throughout the day, Sarah's confidence grew with each successful mission. She was no longer the struggling recruit who couldn't meet basic standards. She had become a skilled tactical operator who contributed unique capabilities to every team she joined. The other members of Chief Harrison's special training group were also excelling in their areas of expertise. Tommy's mechanical skills proved crucial when the team needed to disable simulated explosive devices. Maria's leadership abilities shone during complex multi-team operations. Kevin's protective instincts made him invaluable during escort missions. Lisa's technical expertise enabled the team to overcome electronic security systems. But the real test came during the final phase of the exercise, when all the lessons of teamwork and individual specialty had to come together under maximum pressure. The scenario involved a complex hostage rescue operation that required precision timing, flawless communication, and perfect execution of individual roles. Sarah's team was assigned to provide overwatch and intelligence support for the primary assault team. Her job was to monitor the target building, identify threats, and guide the assault team through the safest approach routes. The margin for error was 0. Any mistake could result in simulated casualties that would mean exercise failure. As she established her observation position, Sarah felt the weight of responsibility that came with being trusted to perform a critical mission. But instead of the paralyzing fear she had experienced during her early weeks of training, she felt focused determination. Chief Harrison's training had prepared her for exactly this kind of challenge. For 3 hours, Sarah maintained constant surveillance of the target area, tracking enemy movement patterns and identifying the optimal timing for the assault. Her reports were clear, accurate, and delivered with the professional confidence of a seasoned operator. When the assault team made their move, Sarah's guidance proved invaluable. She warned them about concealed threats, directed them through safe passages, and coordinated their approach with precision that resulted in a flawless mission execution. Mission accomplished, came the final radio call as the hostages were successfully rescued and all enemy threats neutralized. As the exercise concluded and recruits assembled for debriefing, Sarah realized that she had not only survived the ultimate test of basic training, but had excelled in ways she never thought possible. The transformation from struggling recruit to competent operator was complete. Chief Harrison stood before the assembled company with a slight smile that suggested he was pleased but not surprised by the results. His experimental training methods had been vindicated by the performance of recruits, who had been written off as failures under the traditional system. Today you proved that there are many different ways to be an excellent soldier, he announced. Some of you succeeded through raw physical ability. Others succeeded through technical expertise. Still others succeeded through tactical thinking and situational awareness. The military needs all of these capabilities. He looked directly at Sarah as he continued. The most important lesson you should take from this exercise is that your value as a soldier isn't determined by how well you fit a standardized mold. Your value comes from developing your unique capabilities and learning how to contribute them effectively to your team. As the recruits prepared to return to their barracks, Sarah knew that her journey through basic training had become something much more significant than just meeting minimum requirements. She had discovered capabilities she didn't know she possessed and learned that her initial struggles had been stepping stones rather than roadblocks to success. The weeks following the culmination exercise brought a different kind of challenge for Sarah. Having proven herself during the intensive simulation, she now faced the reality of completing the remaining phases of basic training under the traditional system. Chief Harrison's special program had been a temporary intervention, and now she had to demonstrate that her transformation was permanent. The return to standard training protocols initially felt like a step backward. Drill sergeants who had previously dismissed Sarah as a failure were now forced to acknowledge her improved performance, but some seemed reluctant to believe that her changes were genuine. They tested her resolve with additional scrutiny and challenges designed to see if her newfound confidence would crumble under pressure. Sarah's first major test came during the final physical fitness assessment that would determine whether she met the minimum standards required for graduation. The same running track that had defeated her weeks earlier now lay before her, but everything about her approach had changed. Instead of running as an individual trying to meet an arbitrary time standard, Sarah approached the 2-mile run as a tactical mission. She paced herself strategically, used breathing techniques Chief Harrison had taught her, and maintained the mental focus she had developed during reconnaissance training. When she crossed the finish line, her time wasn't just acceptable, it was competitive. More importantly, she finished strong, with energy reserves that she could have used to continue running if the mission required it. Outstanding improvement, Martinez, Drill Sergeant Rodriguez admitted grudgingly as he recorded her time. Whatever you figured out, keep doing it. The physical transformation was impressive, but the mental change was even more significant. Sarah no longer approached challenges with the desperate fear of failure that had characterized her early weeks. Instead, she tackled each task with the analytical mindset Chief Harrison had helped her develop. During weapons qualification, she applied the same tactical thinking that had made her successful in reconnaissance missions. Instead of simply trying to hit targets, she studied wind conditions, adjusted for lighting changes, and controlled her breathing with the precision of a trained marksman. Her scores placed her in the top 10% of her company. The other recruits began to notice Sarah's transformation and sought her advice on challenges they were facing. Jennifer, who had always been supportive, now asked Sarah for help with tactical problems. Marcus included her in planning sessions for team exercises. Even recruits from other platoons recognized her expertise in situational awareness and strategic thinking. But Sarah's most significant test came when she was selected to represent her company in an intercompany competition designed to identify the most promising graduates for advanced training opportunities. The selection was based on overall performance, leadership potential, and specialized skills demonstrated throughout basic training. The competition brought together the top recruits from 6 different companies for a complex, multi-day exercise. that would determine who received recommendations for elite schools and specialized training programs. Sarah found herself competing against recruits who had been standout performers from the beginning of their training. The first day of competition focused on individual skills assessment. Sarah excelled in the tactical analysis portions, demonstrating the ability to quickly assess complex scenarios and develop effective response strategies. Her performance in urban navigation and threat identification was particularly impressive, drawing attention from senior instructors who were observing the competition. Martinez shows exceptional aptitude for intelligence work, one observer noted in her evaluation. Her analytical capabilities and situational awareness are at levels typically seen only in soldiers with combat experience. The second day involved team leadership challenges, where each recruit had to plan and execute missions while leading groups of their peers. Sarah's approach was different from the traditional command and control style that most recruits attempted. Instead, she focused on identifying each team member's strengths and creating plans that maximize their individual contributions. Her team consistently outperformed others because she understood that effective leadership meant enabling others to succeed, rather than simply giving orders. The tactical principles Chief Harrison had taught her extended beyond individual skills to include the ability to organize and coordinate complex operations. During the final phase of the competition, Sarah faced her ultimate challenge. Each recruit had to complete a solo mission that tested every skill they had developed during basic training. The scenario involved navigating through hostile territory, gathering intelligence on enemy positions, and returning with information that would be critical for a larger operation. The mission required Sarah to travel several miles through unfamiliar terrain, avoid detection by roving patrols, and accurately assess a complex tactical situation. It was exactly the kind of challenge that would have been impossible for her during the early weeks of training, but now felt like a natural application of her developed capabilities. Sarah moved through the exercise area with confidence, using natural cover and concealment to avoid detection, while systematically gathering the required intelligence. Her observations were detailed and accurate, identifying not just enemy positions but also vulnerabilities that could be exploited in future operations. When she returned from the mission, her debrief impressed even the most senior evaluators. She had not only completed all required objectives, but had gathered additional intelligence that exceeded expectations. Her tactical recommendations showed sophisticated understanding of military operations that suggested significant potential for advanced roles. The competition results were announced during a formal ceremony attended by the base commander and senior training staff. Sarah's name was called as one of 3 recruits selected for recommendations to specialized schools. The announcement felt surreal after weeks of being considered a training failure. Private Martinez has demonstrated exceptional analytical capabilities and tactical thinking that suggest strong potential for intelligence and reconnaissance roles, the base commander announced as he presented her with a certificate of achievement. Her transformation during basic training exemplifies the kind of adaptability and determination we seek in our future leaders. As the ceremony concluded, Chief Harrison approached Sarah with a rare smile. "I told you that you had untapped potential," he said. "You've proven that success isn't about fitting a mold. It's about discovering what you're capable of and finding the right way to develop those capabilities." The conversation continued as they walked away from the ceremony. "Your real test begins now," Chief Harrison continued. "Basic training was about discovering your abilities. Advanced training will be about refining them into specialized skills that can make a real difference in military operations." Sarah's journey from struggling recruit to top performer had become an inspiration for other soldiers who faced similar challenges. Her story demonstrated that early struggles didn't predict final outcomes, and that the right training approach could unlock potential that traditional methods might never discover. As she prepared for the next phase of her military career, Sarah reflected on how much had changed since that first desperate night when she had considered quitting. The girl who couldn't complete basic physical requirements had become a soldier, recommended for elite training programs. The transformation seemed impossible, but it had been built step by step through the application of training methods that recognized her individual strengths. Most importantly, Sarah had learned that military service wasn't about becoming someone else. It was about becoming the best possible version of herself while contributing to something larger than any individual could accomplish alone. 6 months after graduation from basic training, Sarah found herself standing in the briefing room of a classified facility that she couldn't have imagined existing during her struggling early weeks as a recruit. The Advanced Intelligence Analysis School had accepted her based on Chief Harrison's recommendations, and her exceptional performance during the intercompany competition, the transformation from basic training failure to intelligence specialist, had required every lesson she learned about perseverance, tactical thinking, and understanding her own capabilities. But the real validation of her journey came through the meaningful work she was now performing in support of actual military operations. Sarah's first major assignment involved analyzing intelligence from a complex counter-terrorism operation in Eastern Europe. The work required exactly the kind of situational awareness and analytical thinking that Chief Harrison had identified as her natural strengths. She spent hours studying satellite imagery, communications intercepts, and field reports to identify patterns that could save lives. The breakthrough came during her third week on the assignment. While reviewing surveillance footage that other analysts had already examined, Sarah noticed subtle details that indicated the presence of a previously unknown enemy safehouse. Her observation led to the discovery of a weapons cache that could have been used in a planned attack against civilian targets. "Outstanding work, Martinez," her supervisor said as he reviewed her analysis. "Your attention to detail and ability to see connections that others miss is exactly what we need in this field. You've potentially saved dozens of lives with this discovery." The recognition felt different than the praise she had received during training. This wasn't about meeting standards or completing exercises. It was about contributing to real missions that protected people and supported national security objectives. But Sarah's most meaningful assignment came when she was selected to provide intelligence support for a team of Army Rangers conducting a hostage rescue operation. The mission required her to analyze enemy positions, predict movement patterns, and provide real-time intelligence that would guide the tactical team through a dangerous environment. As she prepared for the mission, Sarah couldn't help thinking about how far she had traveled from that night behind the mess hall, when she had seriously considered quitting basic training. The skills that Chief Harrison had helped her discover were now being used to support some of the military's most elite operators in life-or-death situations. The operation took place over 2 days, with Sarah working from a command center while maintaining constant communication with the rescue team. Her job was to monitor enemy communications, track movement patterns, and identify any changes in the tactical situation that could affect the mission. When the Rangers encountered unexpected resistance during their approach to the target building, Sarah's analysis became crucial. She quickly identified an alternative route that would allow them to avoid the heaviest enemy concentration while still maintaining the element of surprise. "Intelligence, this is Ranger 6, came the radio call from the team leader. "Your route recommendation worked perfectly. We're in position and ready to execute." The rescue operation was successful, with all hostages recovered safely and no friendly casualties. Sarah's intelligence support had been instrumental in the mission's success, proving that her analytical capabilities could make a real difference in critical situations. Following the operation, Sarah received a commendation for her exceptional performance and was recommended for additional advanced training. But more importantly, she had found her place in the military as someone who could contribute unique and valuable capabilities to important missions. 3 years later, Sarah received news that brought her full circle to her basic training experience. Chief Harrison, who had been promoted to Senior Chief Petty Officer, was implementing his unorthodox training methods as part of an official military program designed to identify and develop specialized talents in struggling recruits. The program had been authorized based on the success stories of Sarah and the other recruits from his original experimental group. Military leadership had recognized that traditional training methods, while effective for most recruits, were failing to identify and develop important capabilities in soldiers who didn't fit the standard mold. Sarah was invited to return to Fort Benning as an instructor in the new program, bringing her real-world experience in intelligence operations to help train the next generation of specialized soldiers. The opportunity represented the completion of a journey that had begun with failure. and led to meaningful success. Standing before a new group of struggling recruits, Sarah saw reflections of her former self in their worried expressions and defensive body language. She understood their fear of failure and their frustration with training methods that seemed designed to expose their weaknesses rather than develop their strengths. "I know what you're thinking," she began, her voice carrying the confidence that came from proven expertise. "You're wondering if you're cut out for military service. You're questioning whether the struggles you're facing mean you should quit and go home." She paused, making eye contact with each recruit. 3 years ago, I was exactly where you are now. I was failing every test, struggling with every challenge, and convinced that I wasn't strong enough, fast enough, or tough enough to be a soldier. The recruit's attention was complete as Sarah continued. "What I learned, and what you're going to discover, is that the military needs many different kinds of warriors. Your job isn't to become a copy of someone else. Your job is to discover what you're uniquely capable of and learn how to contribute those capabilities to your team and your mission." Over the following weeks, Sarah worked with Chief Harrison to implement the training methods that had transformed her own military career. They identified recruits whose natural abilities had been overlooked by traditional training, developed specialized instruction that built on individual strengths, and created team exercises that demonstrated the value of diverse capabilities. The program's success exceeded even Chief Harrison's expectations. Recruits who had been marked for discharge as failures were graduating and going on to successful military careers in specialized fields. The military was retaining talented individuals who would have been lost under the old system, while developing capabilities that enhanced overall operational effectiveness. Sarah's personal transformation had become part of a larger revolution in military training philosophy. The recognition that success could take many different forms, and that the right training approach could unlock potential that traditional methods missed, was changing how the military developed its human resources. As she watched a new group of graduates receive their assignments to advanced schools and specialized units, Sarah reflected on the journey that had brought her to this point. The girl who had almost quit basic training had become a respected intelligence analyst and instructor whose work was helping other soldiers discover their own potential. The lesson of her story wasn't just about individual perseverance, though that had been important. The real lesson was about the value of recognizing that people have different strengths, and that effective training requires methods flexible enough to develop those strengths rather than forcing everyone into identical molds. Chief Harrison's combat instruction had saved more than just Sarah's military career. It had revealed principles of leadership and training that were transforming how the military approached human development. The impact extended far beyond individual success stories to influence institutional change that would benefit countless future soldiers. Sarah Martinez had not only made it through basic training, she had helped change basic training itself, ensuring that future recruits with non-traditional strengths would have better opportunities to discover and develop their unique capabilities in service to their country.